The Trump administration's public humiliation is now complete. Roughly 1 day after they attempted a sweeping, unilateral, and likely illegal power grab by freezing all congressionally approved federal funding, they are now rescinding that order in the face of widespread backlash. And we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, this is a major defeat for the Trump administration, roughly 9 days into that administration, and it cannot be overstated. As Sahil Kapoor reports, the White House is rescinding the memo that took effect yesterday on the federal aid freeze. Memorandum for the heads of executive department and agencies from Matthew J. Veth, acting director of Office of Management and Budget. OMB Memorandum M2513 is rescinded. If you have any questions about implementing the president's executive orders, please contact your agency general counsel. We'll read the article about this. Trump administration rescinds order attempting to freeze federal aid spending. The move comes just 1 day after the order was issued and federal district judge temporarily halted it. Donald Trump's administration on Wednesday rescinded a widespread freeze of most federal grants and loans. I think there's an article there missing. Freeze of most federal grants and loans just 1 day after it was issued amidst significant criticism. The order, which sparked chaos and confusion across Washington, was temporarily halted by a federal district judge Tuesday evening. This freeze, among other things, effectively blocked 70 to 80 million Americans from their Medicaid. So the memorandum issued exceptions for Social Security and Medicare, but it did not issue an exception for Medicaid. And as a consequence of this, the Medicaid portal in all 50 states, not just blue states, but red states as well, was frozen for hours. And the Trump administration came up with an excuse, it wasn't intended, it'll be back online shortly. And then hours and hours and hours unfolded, and it didn't happen. And the backlash was significant. We discussed it here. This is a major defeat by the Trump administration in the face of widespread opprobrium. Friend of the show and Democratic Congressman Maxwell Frost discussed this. Due to massive public pressure and us fighting back, the White House has rescinded their illegal Republican ripoff. We won this battle, but the war against Project 2025 is still on. They stopped Medicaid, food stamps, and much more. We made that temporary, but they will try again. AOC, Congressman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, responded with FAFO, aka fuck around and find out. She then posted another tweet saying, "This is Trump's first major loss. When we fight, we win. We may not have majorities in the House and Senate, but we do have the power to loudly educate and mobilize against the mass looting the Trump administration is attempting against our veterans, healthcare, education, and more." This is huge, folks. It really is. It's a big deal. And Congressman Frost mentioned Project 2025. This is important. It's important to remember that this is right out of the Project 2025 playbook. The memos that were written on this topic were drafted by members of Project 2025. And as we discussed in a previous video, that revelation is so wildly unpopular that the Trump White House scrambled to scrub the metadata from the internet so as to prevent people from finding out that Project 2025 has infiltrated the White House, even though Donald Trump in his campaign insisted throughout the campaign, Donald Trump has nothing to do with Project 2025. Sure, Project 2025 is drafted by people who served in the Trump campaign and in the Trump administration, and Trump's name is littered throughout the 1,000-page Project 2025 document, but these are just sheer coincidences. And then, of course, major Project 2025 players have been given positions in the Trump administration, including Russ Vought. Russell Vought is a key Project 2025 architect, and he will be the head of the Office of Management and Budget, a key executive office under the Trump administration, which at this moment is responsible for this particular memo. So it is part and parcel of Project 2025. Trump lied to everybody's face. He tried to implement a sweeping Project 2025 initiative, trying to erode checks and balances. Because as a reminder, the Constitution confers the power of the purse onto Congress. Congress is the one that gets to provide the funding and the appropriations. And no president, Democrat or Republican, should have the ability to basically give Congress the finger and say, no, I'm not spending this congressionally approved money for congressionally appropriated ends. As a matter of fact, it has been a matter of explicit law for like 50 years that this notion of impoundment, of the president, again, giving the finger to Congress and saying, no, I will spend only half of it or a third of it or none of it, or I'll take some of the funding and put it way over here for a different purpose that was not congressionally authorized. That's been explicitly forbidden, because to not have it that way, to permit any president to do what Donald Trump wants to do, would be to give the presidency even more power. It would further neutralize Congress. And that's precisely what Donald Trump and Project 2025 aim to do. They want to hoard as much power onto the executive as they possibly can. And this was their first aggressive attempt at doing so 8 days into the Trump administration. They intended to hit the ground running. This was a sweeping, bold attempt by the Trump administration to stick it to Congress. And it failed in 24 hours because of widespread public backlash and attention. Now, that's not to say the next attempt will fail, because as Maxwell Frost points out, and I think he's right, there will be further, more sophisticated attempts coming down the road. We have not defeated the authoritarian instinct within the Trump administration and the Republican Party. But it does go to show that there is some potency, there is some power to widespread mobilization, to Democrats in one voice loudly, both in the House and the Senate, and governors speaking up against the unconstitutionality of the Trump administration loudly, persuasively, not piecemeal, not scattershot, but just an insurmountable wall of outrage. And that's what we saw yesterday. That's what we saw in the past 24 to 36 hours. We saw governors, we saw senators, we saw House members on social media and on TV and during, conducting interviews on social media, speaking out against this. We have to do it. We have to be aggressive. We have to be agile, because this delivers results. This is why the Trump administration has folded for now. Or, as Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, put it like this.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time. People are.
He did say that in response to the unconstitutional Project 2025 driven federal freeze by the Trump administration. This was Chuck Schumer's unfortunate choice of words, that people are aroused. But people were alert. People were engaged. And again, this is why it's so important, because the levers of institutional power are in the hands of Republicans. And there are very few checks against that power, very few cards that the Democrats can play. And that's why it's incumbent on us, both those of us in the media, alternate media, commentators such as myself, and certainly elected Democrats, to play the hand we've been dealt to the very best of our ability. Don't be slow. Don't be lethargic. Don't hold a press conference in 2 days or 2 weeks. Do it now, loudly, with one voice, together, and try different combinations of words. Try different persuasive avenues, but damn it, do it, and do it quick, and do it loudly. That's what we saw yesterday, and it appears to have worked. So, again, the Trump administration's public humiliation is now on full display. We should take a well-earned victory lap, but stay vigilant, because they will try and try again. And we should take notes of what we did to address this issue in the past 24 to 36 hours and continue to refine the process to hold the Trump administration accountable. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.